Hello. Name is Emmanuel. I'm going to be discussing about quadratic equation. Now, quadratic equations, all quadratic equations are of the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0. All quadratic equations should be of that form where a, b, and c are constants. A, B, and C are constants. Now, any equation with a degree 2 is called a quadratic equation. There are basically three methods of solving quadratic equations. You can use factorization method, then you can use completing squares, or some people call it the quadratic formula. But basically it's all about completing squares. So I prefer to call it completing squares, and then there's the graphical method. Now in this video I'll basically look at the factorization method. Then my upcoming videos we shall look at completing squares and the graphical method. So if you look at the factorization, if you have to use factorization to solve a quadratic equation, so using now, if you have to use factorization, there are basically a few things you need to have to note. They are the basic principles you have to follow. If you have your quadratic equation, which is ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0, we look at what we call them the roots, the product of the roots and the sum of the roots. The roots are the answers, like the answers which you get after solving the quadratic equation. All quadratic equation will give you two roots or two answers, hence the degree 2 power 2. If it was power 3, we would get 3 answers. If it was power 4, we would expect 4 answers. So the degree of the highest degree of any polynomial will give you the answers. So the polynomials of degree 2 are called quadratic equations. They are at higher levels, you look at degree 3, degree 4, and so forth. So if we have this, we note that the sum of the roots, remember we say the roots are the two answers which you get. So the sum of the roots, sum of roots is b. It's just the coefficient on x. So what is the sum of the roots? It is just the coefficient on x. So it is b. Then the product of roots is you have a times c. So you look at the coefficient on x squared and then the constant. So that will give you the product of the roots. Now the moment for each quadratic equation you have and you are going to use factorization method, look at the sum of the roots and look at the product of the roots. Let's take an example. Okay, example. If we have a quadratic equation, let's have x squared plus 2x minus 3 equals to 0. Now, there. Step number 1, let's identify our constants. So we find that our a here is 1, the coefficient on x squared is 1. Our b is 2, okay, the coefficient on x, and then our C is minus 3. Step number 1, do that always. Then let's look at, so what's going to be our sum of roots. Sum of roots is 2 because it is the coefficient on x. Then our product of roots, it is 1 times minus 3, which is minus 3. So we have our sum and we have our product. Now the next step is to think of two numbers such that when you add them, their sum gives you 2 and their product gives you minus 3. Let's think. So we have 1 and minus 3. Or we have that one. So we shall have 3 and minus 1. Okay? Because if you have 3 plus minus 1, you have 2. You have 3 times minus 1, you get minus 3. Now, these factors you have are going to replace this, because if you have 3x, take away x, we shall have 2x this. Now instead of having this 2x here, we shall instead write 3x minus x. Why are we doing this? We are going to factorize, and you can only factorize pairs. Okay, these are 3 terms which you can't. If we pair this, we have only this one, so it can't get another factor to pair with. That's why we need 4 terms such that we can pair them. So we shall have our equation being x squared. Now instead of having 2x, we shall have plus 3x minus x, because this gives us 2x minus 3, giving us a 0. Okay, now we haven't changed anything with our equation, and you should never change anything with your equation, otherwise you will be working on a different question. So we can now pair these two, and we can now pair also these two. So if you look at x squared and 3x, what is common between these is just x. Here what is left is x plus 3. Then if you look at minus x and minus 3, what is common is actually minus 1. So you have here minus 1, then we shall have x plus 3, and that will be equal to 0. Okay, now we find that x plus 3 and x plus 3 are common factors, so we shall factorize it out. So we have x plus 3, and then we have x minus 1 being equal to 0. So here either of these factors should give us a 0. So either x plus 3 gives us a 0. So you have that x is minus 3, or x take away 1 gives us a 0, and x is 1. So these are the roots of our quadratic equation. Okay, so the steps are the same no matter which equation you have. If you are using factorization method, look for the sum of the roots and the product of the roots. The moment you have them, you look for their sum and product, the numbers which you can add to give you that sum, and multiply to give you the product which you have, and you are able to solve that equation by factorization method. Okay, in my next video I'll be looking at more examples using factorization, and where we have the coefficient, where we have a coefficient which is not 1 on x squared, and probably we look at where we have maybe repeated rules, how we can work that out quickly. Thank you.